What's up, guys? Welcome to Demo with Mo. I'm your host, Monique Simmons. We'll be discussing dating, engaged, and married objectives from a young Christian's perspective. Are you guys ready? Let's dive in. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of Demo with Mo. I am your host, Monique Simmons. And today is the season's finale for season 7. Today's episode is going to be a little different from what we usually do. I have invited a friend to join me, Mrs. Ashley Jenkins. She is a therapist with 10 plus years of experience in the field of social work. She refers to herself as your neighborhood's hope dealer. Girl, I love that so much. I'll never get over that. I love it. She is a mom, wife, and a great friend. I'm proud to hand the host seat over to her today. Welcome, Ashley, or as I call her, Ash. So I am handing this thing over to you.
All right.
That's why I told you guys we're doing this thing a little different today. I am going to hop on over to the seat of the person being interviewed, and Miss Ashley is going to be the host. And before we switch things over a little bit, I'm going to let y'all know today is going to be a little transparent for me, a little vulnerable for me. Today's going to be a little sensitive for me. I just want to go ahead and say that. But Ashley, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this today.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I am just honored that I know this is your baby, so I'm honored that you allowed me to come in and be the one to interview you, especially on such a topic as this. So I'm just going to tell a little bit about Mo. I mean, I know most of you know her from being here on her podcast and listening, but Mo is a Christian wife, mom, and podcast host. She's worked over 15 years in the healthcare field. She has been married to her husband, Corey, 14 years. They have 3 children, ages 16, 13, and 4. She loves traveling, dancing, trying new restaurants, reading books, and listening to podcasts. She teaches Sunday school and leads the couples ministry alongside her husband at their church. She started this podcast to give a space for people who have a desire to do relationships well and to hear authentic conversations about the struggles we all face. The things she wished she would have known in early years of her relationship. Simply put, she loves God and loves people. And I can say that that last part is definitely true. Mo is a great friend of mine. We met on Facebook, but we connected. And I'm just so excited to be here today. She's motivated me even to want to start my own podcast and do some things. So putting me in the seat of an interviewer and letting this be like using her platform even to get that launched and started, I just really appreciate you. So I'm going to dive right into the discussion today. And as she already told you all, it's a very candid conversation and topic we're going to have today. So today's topic is about Mo and how she found out that her father is not her biological father. And so I have a few questions that I have come up with to ask Mo. And so before I get into anything, tell me what made you want to, actually tell your listeners about this topic. Why did you pick this topic?
To be perfectly honest, this is not something that I really wanted to talk about. To be perfectly honest, you know me personally, so this is not something that I just go around talking about.
Right.
I just recently shared this with you. This is not something that I even share or have a lot of conversations with privately with people in my life. So this is not something that I'm just comfortable having conversations with privately, let alone on such a public platform.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is something that God has been leading me to talk about. but I wanted to get things in order in my private life before I talked about them publicly. I think sometimes people can share things from a hurt place or a place of resentment or bitterness. And sometimes it's from a place to hurt other people. I never wanted that. You know how I feel about, and my listeners know how I feel about sharing things in my podcast. I never give names. I never try to hurt anyone. That's not what my podcast is about. It's never from that place. Once I got things in order in my private life, meaning I had the conversation with my husband, I had the conversation with my children, I talked to my mom, I talked to my dad, I went all in those steps. I got things in order there, whether no matter how those relationships have worked out, but I got things in order there first. I made sure there was no unforgiveness. I made sure that I was good. I made sure all of those things was right in my private life first. Then I could come here because I knew my story would be able to help somebody else. And that's always what my podcast has been about. Since I started this podcast, that was the reason for starting this podcast, for this space to be able to help others, to let people know that they're not alone. It was started and birthed from relationships and marriages, but even the things that come from our family of origin, our childhood, and from that place, that stuff affects our relationships and our marriages. If we don't deal with those things, we bring that along with us in our relationships and our marriages. And I learned all of that in therapy, and I did the work in therapy, and it helps my marriage. And I want other people, my listeners, the people who hear my podcast, the people who follow me, who listen to me each week, I want them to know that as well. I can't only give them parts of me. I can't only tell them the part that I like to tell them, that I want to tell them. I got to be able to give them all of it to show them you're not alone. That the same way I'm telling you, you should do the work, I'm over here doing the work too. But how am I doing the work? So that was the reason of why I wanted to finally share this and say this. But again, I wanted to make sure I got my stuff in order privately first, because I don't get on here and portray to be something that I'm not. I'm actually living it before I get on here and talk about it.
And I think that's important. It's like, of course, you're always transparent, but something you said is like the living it, not getting on here because, I found a hot topic. It's going to get me views. It's going to get me listens. But really, I went through this. I might be still healing, or I'm healed from it. And now I can help you to get to where I am. So I just commend you on picking such a hard topic to discuss, and to share, because it really is something that is difficult, to be so vulnerable. So yeah, I definitely commend you for that.
Very. And I'm not healed at all. As you said, I am still healing. This is still fresh and this is still new, and I'm doing the work. But the Bible tells us that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. We like the word, we like the blood of the Lamb. We like Jesus to do his part. But what about the word of our testimony? What about that part? What about the part that we have to do? The part of sharing, the part of talking. So many of us as Christians are silent, and we're in shame, and we don't want to say anything, and we don't want to talk about the hard parts and the things we're suffering through. And that's how we overcome, though. The enemy wants us to keep silent. He don't want us to share. He would love nothing more for us to keep all of those things inside, and we don't want anybody to know. But that's how we overcome. We overcome by our words. So
yes, that's good. Well, my first question that I have for you is, I guess I want to start with your relationship with your father. Like, what was that like in childhood? Prior to knowing all this, what was it like, you and your father?
So my dad and I was very close. I was a daddy's girl. And that has been the most difficult part. That has been what I've had to do the most work in therapy with, because that has been the part that I've had to grieve the most. And this is what I've had to talk through with my therapist the most. Usually, girls are trying to work through not having a dad in their life. I'm now an adult trying to work through having such a close relationship with my dad, to now having to grieve that has been taken away, that I don't have that anymore. And that's the part that I struggle with the most. I had a very close relationship with my dad up until I was an adult. We were always close.
What are some of your favorite memories with him?
One of my favorite memories is him teaching me how to drive. My dad taught me how to drive when I was 11. And that's something that we always did together. Like, it wasn't like a one-time thing. He would consistently always drive with me. He always took care of my car things. Like, whenever, and that's why still to this day, my husband has taken it on now, but I don't like doing anything with my car, like putting gas in it or doing anything with oil or anything with my car. My dad took care of all that stuff with me, took care of all that stuff for me. So like anything with my car, like any of that stuff, he did all of that.
Okay.
He would teach me how to do it, but I didn't do it.
You didn't want to do none of that.
No. No.
You had dad to do it. I wonder if that's why you like traveling so much, driving, road trips.
I love driving, and that definitely came from my dad. That definitely came from my dad.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is like you all were close in childhood, but now as an adult, now that things have transpired, the relationship has shifted, it's changed, and you are grieving the loss of that. And I think that's so important that you brought that up, because grief is not always of a dead person. Grief can be the loss of anything, a relationship, a loss of just something that you're used to doing or used to having. And if it's not there anymore, you grieve it. It is a process, So I want to ask you, when did you find out that your father was not your biological father? At what age?
Okay, so this is a two-parter. Between the age of 19 and 20, my mom told my dad and I, so throughout this episode, you are going to hear, and this is, I'm saying this to you, but I'm saying this to the listeners. You're going to hear me refer to him as my dad, because to me, he will always be my dad.
Absolutely.
Period. He'll always be my dad, no matter what anyone else says, whatever DNA test says, he'll always be my dad.
Absolutely.
But between 19 and 20, my mom came and told he and I that he may not be my biological dad. That's what she came and told he and I. And at this time, my dad and my mom was separated. They were no longer together, getting ready to be divorced. But she came to his home where I was living at the time. I had just had my son, my oldest son, and she told him that he may not be my biological father. Okay. So that's where it all begun. So and I'm also saying this because I don't want people to hear this and think like this just happened like yesterday, and now Monique is on her podcast sharing this. This has been a 16-year-long journey that I've been dealing with, and I'm finally talking about it. So this is not something that just happened. This is not new. So that's where it all began. But
were there any indications before she told you? Any ideas at all?
None. Okay. None. And what's funny is, and I've never said this to them, but I've said this to my therapist. My whole life, because my brother and I, it's just my brother and I, are 5 years apart. His entire life, as long as I can remember, I would jokingly say to him all the time, "You're adopted." I would say this to him all the time. And my mom would never say anything. Like, I would just jokingly say, you're adopted. You don't look like us. You're not, we found you in a trash can. Just things siblings just joke on each other about. And I'm sure in her mind, it had to have been in her mind. You may not even be the child. You know what I'm saying? But I'm sure that it's not a joke, but I said it so often, like it had to have crossed her mind because I said it to him so often. But this year, well, back in the beginning of April, and so much has happened in between. It's so much that has transpired over the years. But finally in April, I had reached out to my dad for the final time. This year I had decided I'm going to go on this journey by myself. And again, it's so much that has transpired in between. But I had finally decided this year I want to go on this journey by myself, whether my dad agreed or not. I reached out to him one final time after I had been praying and talking to God. And the Holy Spirit was like, reach out to him one more time. I said, okay, I'm going to reach out to him one more time. And I texted him and I said, so I'm going to do a paternity test to find out if you're my biological father. Would you be interested in doing it with me? And he said, yes. He immediately texted me back, yes. And that was April of this year. And we ended up doing it. And we did it on April 29th. I remember. We did it on April 29th. And we got the results back on May 10th. And the only reason I remember that because it was the Friday before Mother's Day.
Okay.
And that's when I found out, the Friday before Mother's Day.
So I have a question because there's a little gap in space. I kind of want to bring it together. So when your mom tells you all at 1920, because you kind of fast forwarded to April of reaching out to him one last time, what transpired with the relationship within those years? However you can sum it up.
Yeah, that's why I said so much has happened because it's 15, 16 years in between all of this. Okay, so I found out that he might not be in 1920. Right. I stopped talking to my mom. That's why me and my mom have had such a on, off again relationship all these years. And it's like one of those things that is just hard to explain because if I really could tell it all, I have to tell you everything. So if I don't tell you everything, you don't understand why Monique and her mom don't have a good relationship.
Correct.
And if I tell you everything, now you know everything.
Everything.
Exactly. So now you just have to look at me some type of way. Because I can't tell you everything because I don't want you to look at my mama some type of way. I don't want you to look at my daddy some type of way. So I just let people think what they want to think about me. And that's just what I take up. I bear the cross because I don't want you looking at them some type of way. That's a whole nother thing. So
I can relate.
So I stopped talking to my mom. On again, off again. That's just to sum it up, basically, without going into all the details. I stopped talking to her on and off again for those years until I finally forgive her. Because when she told me I wasn't a Christian yet, I didn't give my life to Christ till I was 21. I wasn't married yet. So it was just on again, off again until I gave my life to Christ and really got close to God. And I finally forgave her. So our relationship was just kind of up and down. But between that time, she told me, and I don't mention names, but she told me who the man was who could be my dad. Which it was either him or my dad at this time, because I just found out just a few months ago. Right. So it could be either him or my dad. This man, who the other guy was, she gave him my phone number. I was mad at her about that. At this point, I was mad at my mom about everything. It was like anything she did, I was mad about because it's just like she pulled the rug from underneath me. Like, it was like, you've been lying to me my whole life. So at this point, anything she did, I was just I was hurt. Anything she did. So she gave him my phone number and he would call me, like, if not every day, every other day. I didn't answer the phone. And I don't even know back then if we could block numbers. I don't even know. I don't even think we could, but I would never answer the calls because I felt like I would be betraying my dad if I talked to him. Yep. And now at 35, it took me going to therapy. Like when I finally went to therapy, it was so crazy hearing the stuff out loud that I was doing back then, because everything I was doing was for everybody else except me. So I wouldn't talk to him because I felt like it would be betraying my dad. And this man would call me. It started dwindling down from like every other day to like maybe once a week and then like once a month. But he wouldn't give up. The guy wouldn't give up. And I don't even know how long it took me. Maybe like 2 years. It took me a minute. It took me a minute to finally like realize he not giving up. Like he want to be in my life. And I finally like gave in. And I think the first time I met him, Corey and I went out, because I wouldn't meet him without Corey, because I just wanted to feel safe. Not like physically safe, just emotionally safe. Yeah. Because I told you I felt like I was betraying my dad, and I still felt that way. So we ended up meeting him at a restaurant, and I met him. Everything went well, but I still felt like I was betraying my dad. So I started talking to him, but it was like on the surface stuff. And I invited him to church. We had something at church. It was like time for visitors to stand up or something. And he stood up and introduced himself or something. I don't remember. And I'm not even going to mention names or anything. But some kind of way, and I know how, but that's not important. But it got back to my dad that he was there. And my dad called my mom, and he was upset. He was upset. So then this
kind of like your validated. It came to life. Like, I've disappointed my dad, just like I knew I would.
Yes, it validated how I felt already. Like what was already in the back of my head, that I'm betraying him. So then I stopped talking to him again. And it just started that whole cycle over again. So long story short, because a lot happened in between that, my dad really stopped talking to me after that. Like he never once had a conversation with me. Even all these years up until now, until I asked him for a DNA test, until I reached out to him, never once has he had a conversation with me. Even after my mom confronted us about him possibly not being my dad, he never had a conversation with me about any of this. None of it. He just completely avoided me about the whole conversation. It was like, this elephant is here. Nobody's going to talk about the elephant. Nobody. It was like, I'm the only one who wants to talk about the elephant, but everybody else is going to act like the elephant is not here. Okay. So once all of that happened with him at the church, my dad slowly but surely stopped talking to me. Like he used to because he doesn't live here. He used to would come here and visit and would stop by and see me. He would come here and I wouldn't even know he was here. Like I wouldn't even know he was in the state. Or he used to would call me, the calls stopped coming. Or he would call for the kids' birthdays. Their birthdays would come and go, and we wouldn't hear from him. The holidays would come. He would bring like Christmas gifts, and then Christmases would pass by, and we haven't heard from him. But it was never like a conversation, like anything. Like you would just have to come up with something in your mind of what happened. Nothing. It was just like nothing. So, yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's what happened with that relationship. But my mom and we talked. I told her I forgave her. I understood why she, it didn't justify her handling things the way that she handled it. It still hurt me. Don't get me wrong, it still hurt me, but I understood because my mom had me when she was 19, the same age I had my son. And I understood why she could have made the decision that she made.
Yeah.
And now, being the age that I am now, even more mature and wiser, now being where I am today, I appreciate that she had enough courage to even come to me and my dad and even admit. Some people go to their grave and never say anything. You find out on your own. So the fact that she could even come to me and tell me, and I didn't have to find out from somewhere else or found out on my own, I appreciate it even that much more. Back then, I wouldn't have been able to say that to her. I just cut her off because I didn't get it. I didn't understand how you could hurt your child or lie to your child, but now I get it.
Was
I get
possibly
it.
trying to
I get it.
protect
She
you
made the
even in
best
a way.
decision, or what she
Yeah.
thought was the best decision for me and the best decision for her. Because my dad was a great dad. He was a great man, so I get it now. I didn't understand it then, but I get it now, and I appreciate her. So we are in a much better place. My mom and I are in a much better place today. And the other guy, a couple years ago, I asked him, would he be open to doing a DNA test? Because I just didn't want the back and forth anymore, the wondering, the feeling like I'm betraying somebody over here and I don't even really know if you're my father or not. I just didn't want any of that anymore. So I asked him, would he be open to a DNA test? He agreed. And then he fell off the map. And I never heard from him again. Never seen him, never heard from him. And that was years ago. That was over 4 or 5 years ago. And I never heard or seen from him again. So that's where all of those relationships are as of today.
That is a lot. That is a lot. I see why you were talking about that in therapy, because that is a lot to unpack.
Yes, it is.
A lot of abandonment, a lot of hurt, just really big emotions and things that I'm sure you've dealt with and are dealing with even now, even the fact that the other guy was in your life so persistent and then just fell off. Like, what do you do with that? How do you find peace with it? Have you found peace with it?
I have found peace with him because I never built a relationship with him. That was the thing. I never opened myself up to him. I never did. I never even allowed myself to. So it was never anything where I was yearning to have a relationship with him. My dad was always my dad. That's how I looked at it. The only thing about that is, and I'm going to continue on this journey. I am going to do that. And the only thing about that is, one of the things I found out with my meeting him, when Corey and I went to meet him, he has children. He has other kids. So that means I would have siblings. Him and his wife has kids. So I would want to know my possible sibling. And I say possible because I want to get a DNA test. That's what I have figured out on this journey.
Right.
I would want to get a DNA test. So, but I would have possible siblings. And what I've also learned is the kids have no fault in this. The adults making adult decisions and, they're doing what they doing. The kids have no faults in this. Exactly. We play no parts in this. All we did was be born. That's it. So I would want to know if I have siblings. I would want to know my siblings. So that's the only part that I don't want to say I'm not at peace with, because it's not like I don't have peace, because I have peace.
Yeah.
But it's like that's the unknown that I want to know. Like I'm want to continue this journey, because if I have siblings, I want to know my siblings. I don't want to leave this world and have brothers and sisters that I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So have you thought about ever reaching out to them since, their father has kind of disappeared? Yes. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. So you'll be on the journey, and we'll see how that goes as far as that, maybe in a part 2 of the podcast episode. So you've told me how you found out and all of those things. And so I want to talk about a little bit about telling your family, like having the conversation with your husband. Have you had the conversation with your children? What was that like?
Okay, so my children know me. So just like you guys experienced me being very transparent on the podcast, but I'm on the podcast, I'm transparent, but I'm transparent in a way that I want to be.
Correct.
I share the things that I want to share. I don't overshare.
Yes.
But with my kids, they get an open book.
Yeah.
So it's like I share with them, but they've been along for this journey. So they knew a lot already. It
Okay.
was just like me finally getting the results, but they knew so much already. So when I told, my youngest, Zoe Grace, she doesn't understand. Only
Right.
thing she knew was mommy's sad. She was like,
Aw.
Mommy, you okay? Are you okay? You sure you okay? That was Zoe's response.
Mhm.
My son, he is his father's child. So he is very blunt and makes jokes, and that's who he is. So he was like, I called him in the room after I got the results, after I talked to my husband and we had our moment. I called my kids in the room. Well, my husband called the kids in the room and told them we wanted to talk to them. And after I shared with them, my son was the first one to respond. And he was like, you called us in here for this? Like, we already knew this. Like, you've been sharing this with us for years, because I'm really open with my kids. I know some
Yeah.
parents don't, share everything, and no knock to I think parents should parent the way that they feel is best for their kids. But I share things with my kids. I don't want any secrets with my kids. I share what I feel is appropriate, but I share a lot with my kids.
Hmm.
So he knew a lot. My older two kids knew a lot already. So that's why he responded that way. But it was like, it wasn't no secret to him. It was like he's 16. He put pieces together. When I was 16, I knew a lot too. It was like when I was 16, my parents separated. And when it happened, it was like, it wasn't no secret to me. I knew this was coming. I already knew this was happening. So when he said it, it made complete sense to me. And my parents weren't even talking to me about what was happening. I just read the room. I knew, and I'm openly having conversations with my kids. So as a parent who's talking to their kids, it wasn't a surprise that he responded that way. So he completely understood. It was just I wanted to talk to them because now I finally have the actual results, and I know for sure it's not a
Hmm.
cloud over us anymore, or wondering, or we think. But my son had put the pieces together. He's like, we don't see Pawpaw anymore. He not coming around. We not talking to him. Now you're saying this. It's like we
Figured.
already know
Yeah.
this. So yeah, that's
What about
kind
your
of what it
oldest
is.
daughter? What was her reaction?
Mariah is very reserved with her emotions. Like, she didn't have much to say. I think she was kind of taking in how I was feeling. Like, she just
Hmm.
nodded her head. That
Okay.
was it. She didn't say anything.
Okay.
She's the one that I have to like check in on when she's by herself.
Hmm.
She's not going to say much. She
Makes
just kind of pays attention to the surroundings, how you feeling, what's going on. And she just pays attention. She won't say much.
sense. And I know you said that you and your husband had a moment before you told the kids, but I'm just assuming that he knew prior to the results as well. But take us to the moment of the results. What was your husband's reaction at that point?
He asked me, was I okay? That was his first response. Are you okay? Because we had already talked about it when I first did the DNA test, which I told you I did it on April 29th.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me, was I okay? Because I had already told him that I was at peace about it when I did the DNA test. I told him I was at peace about it, whichever way the results went. The only reason that I was doing it because I didn't want the cloud over my head. Like I didn't want to wonder what if or if it is, if it ain't. I just didn't want that for my family. I didn't want that for my kids. I didn't want that for my grandkids. Like, I want us to be able to do the hard, uncomfortable things. Like, I want us to know. I don't want any secrets. I just didn't want that for my family and for the generations to come. I just didn't want that. So I was going to be okay either way, even though I desired my father to be my father. But whatever the result said, to me, he's still my dad. Yeah. But his first response was, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yes." I meant what I said. I didn't want to do it until I was okay, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want to do it if I was not in the place where I would be okay if the results was he's not my dad.
Right.
That's why I've been doing the work in therapy. And he was like, he hates that because he doesn't like the place my dad and I are in. He doesn't, because Corey and I have been together since high school. So he knows what my dad and I's relationship was like before all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And he and his dad don't have a close relationship. So to see the relationship that my dad and I have now and to see how my dad has responded due to all of this, it breaks my husband's heart. And he won't say those words, but just seeing his response to my dad and how everything has played out and us going to couples therapy and seeing how he talks about it, it hurts him, So he wasn't happy about it, and he's just not happy about any of it at all.
Yeah.
But he's glad that I'm okay. He's not okay about it. I'm just going to be honest. He's not okay about any of it. And he doesn't even understand or comprehend how I respond the way that I respond. He doesn't understand how I can be okay with all of this. He doesn't even understand it. So he's not okay, but he's glad that I'm okay. I hope that makes sense.
That does make sense. Maybe even like a little bit of transference because he doesn't have that relationship with his dad. And I can't say, the work that he's done or not done, but you've done the work on this. And so maybe if he hasn't really resolved whatever he has with his dad, it could be a possibility that that's kind of affecting him in a way that he may not even be able to really comprehend, like, why am I so affected by it, So it is just one of those things where I'm happy that you did the work. I'm happy that you've come to a place where you're not doing everything for everybody else. And that was the part that I my therapist hat was on. I saw that it got emotional for you when you kind of talked about that. Like, when I talk about this, I realized like I literally was doing everything for everybody else. For my mom, for my dad, for the man that could possibly be my dad. Like, and now you're doing what you need to do for you. Yeah. And so that lets me know that you have made progress in this healing journey. I want to open up the floor. I do have one more question for you. It's going to be a two-parter, and that's the one I'll close on. But is there anything that you would want to say or any advice that you may want to give or just anything that you want or is on your heart about this topic, about this situation that maybe I haven't asked you?
I would say if someone is struggling, just to piggyback off what you just said, because I did get emotional about that part, because I remember when I first started therapy, when I was talking to my therapist and literally, your therapist giving her the rundown of all of the things that has been happening to lead me up to getting to therapy. Mm-hmm. And she was telling me that I am a rescuer. That's kind of the summary of what she told me. She said, I see a need in everybody else, and I want to meet the need. I feel like I got to meet the need for everybody else. And I've been doing it since my childhood. And I'm literally talking to you about all of these things, even through my childhood, about everybody else. And the decisions that I was making, they were for everybody else. And I'm the one over here suffering. I'm dying. I'm literally dying to save everybody else, but nobody is saving me. I'm over here dying, but I'm making decisions to save everybody else. Until I finally sit down on my therapist's couch and realize after saying it out loud that that's what I was doing. And I didn't even realize it. Like I didn't even realize it. So I would encourage anybody, and it don't have to be what I'm going through, whatever it is. If you need to make a decision to save yourself, save yourself. And I don't care who it is. If it's a parent, if it is a spouse, save yourself. Save yourself. Do the work. They will be hurt. They will be offended. They may not like it. But save yourself. When you are on an airplane, one of the things that the flight attendant tell you is to put, if the plane goes down, to put your mask on first. And that's what I had to learn how to do, because while I was so busy trying to do what it takes to save everybody else, I was over there dying. I was literally dying because I'm trying to save everybody else. But I had to begin to save me. That doesn't mean not to help people, not to make sure that they're okay, but you got to save you first.
Yes.
So I would encourage you, do the work. And it's not easy work. I told y'all, this has been a 15, 16-year journey. I just didn't wake up one day and was strong enough and able to tell my story and be able to talk about this with no unforgiveness in my heart and no hurt and no pain. I didn't just wake up one day and be able to do this. I've done the work. I've done the work with my therapist. I've done the work in my relationship with Christ. I've learned how to be self-aware, because there were things that were wrong with me. There were things that I needed to do for myself. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody else. There were things I needed to fix within myself. There were things that I had to learn. There were places where I needed to grow. There were things in me as well, but I had to learn how to do the work. I had to stop trying to rescue everybody else and rescue Monique. So
yes.
Choose you, save you, do the work for you.
That's good. I got this vision of like a house being on fire, and then like being like different stories and everything. And instead of you calling 911 and calling the fire department, you're the one going running back and forth in the house trying to get people out of the fire.
Yes.
And you don't have oxygen, you don't have equipment to be running in this house. And all you had to do was save yourself, go get help, and then they would be saved. You
Yes.
don't have to be the savior. You don't have to run in the fires. So that's what I'm taking away from it, even to share and elaborate even further to help people know, like, go get help. If that's a therapist, if that's, you just removing yourself from the situation, go get the help. Save yourself so that the others that you want to save can really be saved. It's not your job to save them. It's not your job. So the last question I want to ask you is a two-parter. I want to end it on a positive note. So the first part is, what are the negative ways that finding out that your dad was not your dad has that affected you negatively? How has finding that information out about your biological father and who it was and who it wasn't and who it might be, how has that negatively affected you?
It negatively affected me. Okay, I'm gonna say this, but I don't know if this is true or not. I don't know if this is for sure. So I want to preface this by saying this.
Okay.
When I found out that he was not my biological father, when I got the results. A few days later, because when we got the results, I got the results via the mail, and he was supposed to get them by email. For some reason, he didn't get them. So he reached out to me a few days later and asked me had I received them. And I was like, yeah, you didn't get them. You were supposed to get them by email. He was like, no, I didn't get them. So, something as serious as that, I didn't want to just send that through a text message because he was texting me. Like, I just don't want to text you and be like, you're not my biological father. So I took a picture of the results and sent it to him. He got them, and I never heard from him again. And that was in May. This is August. I never heard from him again. I've heard from my stepmother, and I won't say anything about that because that's his wife. And I don't know what he would think or what he would say, but she has reached out to me and she's been there. She's been there for me. So I appreciate and I love her for that. But I have not heard from him at all. So that's one of the negative ways that it has impacted me, because this was it's solidified that we may no longer have a relationship.
Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah. So it was it's like grieving a loss. And that's why we kind of open up with that grieving part, because I've been grieving it, but it's like grieving that friendship that's not the same anymore, but there's a chance you guys may fix things.
Mm-hmm.
But when the friendship is really over and you guys are not coming back, you really have to grieve it for real, because you guys are not coming back. But I prefaced it with saying I don't know if this is really true, because as a Christian, I always have hope. I know God can redeem and restore any relationship. So my prayer and my hope is that one day my dad and I's relationship can be fixed. It can be restored. It will be redeemed. That is my hope and my desire, because again, I have no unforgiveness in my heart towards him, even though he abandoned me. I struggle with that word. I really, me and my therapist have a hard time in our session with that word, because he abandoned me, and I don't, because I saw my dad in such a high esteem all my life. I struggle seeing him in any negative way. I really struggle with that. So I have hope that we one day can have a great relationship again. So that's the negative way it impacted me. It's like, now that the results that he is not my biological father, there's a chance we may never have a relationship again. He could go the rest of his life and never talk to me again, because I'm not his biological daughter. There's a chance of that, but God can do all things as well. So yeah.
I'm going to be praying that with you and for you, that relationship is restored one day. I do believe God he definitely can turn it around. And I just pray he softens his heart. He heals his wounds, and whatever he's dealing with, that he really heals from it. Because I'm sure he's dealing with some things, on this journey, if he's choosing to go on it himself. So,
yeah.
Well, one more question. And I said I want to try to end it on kind of a positive note. I know this is a heavy topic, but tell me a way or some ways that this has positively affected Monique Simmons. What has this done for you?
This journey, because again, this has been a journey, honey.
I know it.
This journey has made me wiser. It has grown me up. It has made me trust God in a way that I didn't even know I could trust God. It has made me know God as a father. We quote scriptures and we talk about God's word, but it's a difference in knowing and quoting God's word, but really intimately knowing God's word. Because when I say God is a father to the fatherless, that's not just like if your father is dead, if he's not physically on this earth anymore. But my father is not in my life far as a relationship. So I had to learn to lean on God as a father and to get to know him in that kind of way. It has been beautiful. I mean, it has really been beautiful, and it has tremendously blessed my life. And I wouldn't have known that if my dad wouldn't have walked out the way he did. So it has matured me and made me lean and depend on God in a way that I didn't before. Like, again, this started when I was 19, and I gave my life to Christ at 21. And I've grown in my walk. I've got to know God intimately and personally. It even helped me in my relationship with my kids. Like, I never want my kids to experience what I've experienced. And don't get me wrong, I told you guys I've grown in my relationship with my mom, but even my relationship with my mom has been up and down through all of this. I don't want my kids to experience what I've had to experience in my relationship with my parents. So I love on them. I talk to them. I'm close to them. Like, it's taught me everything I don't want to do. Yeah. And I have to lean on God in such a heavy way to do the complete opposite of everything that I've been taught and everything that I've been shown, because I don't know how to do this of my own, because of all the things I've seen and I've experienced. And I have to get all of that from God. So I have to lean on God so much to teach me what to do and how to do it. So, yeah.
Well, I don't think that there's a better way to end it. Thinking about what you're taking away from it instead of what you lost. What you gained from it is so much more than the things that you may be lacking earthly. And I know sometimes physically, mentally, emotionally, it may not feel like that, but it is something that has blessed you. It's grown you. And so just let that be the takeaway, from today. My friend, I am so proud of you. So, so very proud of you. This is one of the bravest things that I believe that you could have ever done. And the conversations we have had. And it almost brings me to tears. Like, I just literally am proud of you. I'm proud of you. You're inspiring me. You're helping me to get free myself. And so I know that you're going to do it for others. And so I just want to say, on behalf of your listeners, on behalf of me, as your friend, as your sister in Christ, I thank you. I love you. And you are just amazing. You are absolutely amazing. So that concludes our interview. Do you have anything else? I know you've given me the reins, but do you have anything else that you want to say before we head out tonight?
I just want to say thank you. Seriously. You have been an amazing host. This is only just a sample of what's to come for you on your podcast. I'm excited to see what God is going to do in and through you. I wish you the absolute best on your journey. Thank you for even agreeing to do this. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. I appreciate you. And you come and be a guest. You already agreed, so no take back.
I will be there with bells on. Tell the audience how they can find you, your social media platforms, website, all that good stuff.
All right. So the ways you can find me, you all, as she said, I call myself your neighborhood hope dealer. So I'm on Instagram, neighborhood hope dealer 22. I'm also on TikTok, neighborhood hope dealer 22 or 2022, one of those. You can follow me on Facebook. My name is Ashley Jenkins, spelled the regular way, and on Facebook Live. And I'll be doing podcasts, as Mo has inspired me to do, because I was just going to do Facebook Live, but I'll be doing Spill the Tea therapy talk sessions, Facebook Live, starting in September, every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And really it'll be a lot like this, just kind of like a therapy session, looking for people to interview. So if you're a business owner, if you're a mental health professional and you're interested, or even just someone that has something you want to share, or you want to come get on my couch and we just talk, you all can send information or send a request to info@influentialtouch.com. That's my email, and that's also how you can reach me about any booking for any type of speaking engagements or therapy as well.
Awesome. You guys go follow and check out my girl. Until next time, and we'll see you next season, season 8. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's episode. I hope it has blessed you, helped you wherever you are. Do the work. Don't forget, rescue yourself.
Save you. Go get help.
I love you, but remember, God loves you so much more. Bye, guys.
Bye.
I hope you guys have enjoyed. Follow me on Facebook at Demo with Mo. If you have any questions you would like answered here live on my podcast, email them to me at demowithmo@gmail.com. That's DEMOWITHMO@gmail.com.